Hey guys, this is Jared,
And this is Brandon.
and thank you for joining us for the second episode of our Zyuranger commentary series. Hopefully, this will be a long-running series, and maybe someday, eventually, we will get through the entire show.
Yes, we got plenty of material to cover. We're going to be watching this on the Shout Factory release of Super Sentai Zyuranger. This is Disc 1, Episode 2, The Revival. And of course, like we always say, please support the official release for Super Sentai. This is something for years, we talked about, and of course, we're shocked that we ever even got. And Shout Factory is actually going to be breaking some new ground now. They have gone pretty far up into the run of the show, as we've seen in the U.S., but they're finally going to be doing Jetman, which is the season prior to Zyuranger, so that's exciting, and hopefully they get to go all the way back.
If there's any way possible, always try to pre-order and support the company any way you can, because we want to eventually see a world where all the Sentai seasons are available and maybe even come out almost concurrently over here, thanks to Shout Factory. So hopefully we'll get to that point someday. But for now, let's go ahead and enjoy Episode 2, The Revival. I'm on the episode selection screen of Disc 1, and we'll give you a countdown. So on 3, we'll be ready. On 3, 1, 2, 3, go.
Is this the trailer for Jurassic World 2?
Yes. Indeed, the kingdom has fallen quite a bit. The 5 Rangers have been resurrected. Love those costumes.
Oh, yeah. Whether it was a conscious choice or serendipitous or whatever, there couldn't be more iconic costumes for them to have started off with. So, can you imagine a world where Jetman was the first season of Power Rangers?
Well, all I can tell you is I don't think that Jetman would have been too successful as the first season of Power Rangers, because I just don't know if the theme, with the lack of dinosaurs and those kind of stranger costumes, I just don't know if those really would have did it. I think that it was just pure, like you said, serendipity, just pure luck, pure good fortune that
good
it all
timing.
worked out for Power Rangers.
Well, I made the Jurassic Park joke, but the truth is, Power Rangers started the same year that the first Jurassic Park film was released, so we were all sort of dino crazy at the time.
But yeah, and I think that this fed into it really well, and it was that combination of superheroes and dinosaurs that really made it pop. And plus, the costumes are just so iconic.
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine any other Sentai suit being the first Power Rangers costumes. I don't know what it is, just about the colors or the diamonds or what on the suits, but something really, really works for it.
The plane geometry or whatever it is, but it's flawless.
I absolutely love this. In the last episode with the crazy Mandora Palace and all the building miniatures all crashing together, and
which would be terrifying in real life.
Yeah, those buildings would not hold together. They had a terrific first episode fight scene. Zyuranger is one of those Sentai where they get right down to it in the first episode to try to sell you on the show, but of course they didn't do any mecha stuff, which is, thankfully we corrected that.
Hit the ground running. We discussed this before, but again, it's very interesting because, in our Power Rangers, we would get little bits of things like Bandora Rita on the flying bicycle, or sort of the heavy Dora golems with this very little explanation. And it's to see it from start to finish. It's sort of like seeing something you're not supposed to be, or you're not allowed to see.
I love the newscasters fighting and responding to everything going on, because that's something that we really didn't ever see too much in Power Rangers or in Super Sentai in general. Is you would think that if this stuff was happening, it would be big news.
You see very little of the authority responding to these situations.
Yes, there are children inside that shuttle, and that makes things a lot more difficult. There's Barza creeping around.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say.
It's so great to see this. Now, here's something that we only ever got hints of, in Power Rangers, and it's funny to finally see these big animatronics and stuff.
Was that Roger Corman's Carnosaur?
Well, that's what it looks like. It all looks like, that kind of like dinosaur exhibit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny, if you don't have the money to show a tribe war of all 5 tribes and to show all the Guardians, then cut to some miniatures and look at a book, for a while if you don't want to film all of it, because this really works, Now, I love all this, and I don't understand why this stuff about these flashback sequences about Bandora, why they couldn't have used them as Rita Repulsa stuff to explain her reign on Earth in Power Rangers. Because to me, that just would have been terrific. I also love it that it shows them riding dinosaurs, unlike the flashback in the book. You get some hints, of course, about the backstory there for Geki, but that'll be fleshed out in later episodes.
Maybe they should have done something more like that in the intro to the 2017 film.
Yeah.
maybe
that's what they should have
Maybe
done.
Zordon Red Ranger should have been riding on a Tyrannosaurus in that intro.
Now, the Guardian Beasts, they kind of reference them again as these like godlike creatures that kind of show up. Oh, and this, where she actually gets sealed inside what we would call the space dumpster. Why didn't they use this?
Yeah.
I mean, that would there isn't anything there that would have prevented them from using it. So I just don't get it. It's funny they were in such a hurry to establish everything in the first episode that a lot of this exposition probably belonged in the first episode.
Yeah. And, again, to put this in context, when we were watching Power Rangers, it was a daily, show. It was in practical syndication.
Yeah, it was pretty much syndicated.
Except it was a network deal. And, you got to think in Japan, these were weekly episodes. So now Power Rangers is weekly in the U.S. now because of the fewer number of episodes. But at the time, they just ran through 60 episodes over the course of a matter of weeks because it was material they had to play around with. So to think, how well were people keeping up with it at the time?
Toad Patton book back are some of my favorite Sentai costumes of all time.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen those Imagine X figurines that they've
Oh,
done?
man. I saw those the other day, and those were incredible.
I haven't bought into that line yet, and I've resisted it, but I'm going to have to.
Giant Rita Repulsa face, or Bandora face back there is a little much to him. No wonder the kids are terrified. Pleprecon is one of my favorite alternative Japanese names here for Finster. I wonder if we look closely at some of these little miniatures, if these are some of the first monsters. But honestly, I can't really recognize any there.
I don't really think
so.
anybody is.
I think they just probably made some stuff.
Yeah. They reused that shot so many times.
Yeah.
Through the course of the show as well. Squish.
Dora Skeleton.
Bones, as he was called here in the U.S.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite old monster designs.
Mm-hmm. He had an exquisite 8-inch action figure.
Oh, I love that thing.
With a soft goods cape.
Every time I see it out, it's always in really kind of rough, kind of like, decolored.
Yeah.
It's very discolored.
I have one in pretty good shape. Although I bought him on eBay or whatever with the box, and the leg had been broken at some point and he was glued together. He's perfect otherwise. The cape's in good shape, but... So I got a partial refund. It worked out pretty well.
It's kind of funny to see some of the minions just cursing casually.
Yeah.
I will say I've watched a lot of the Zyuranger set, almost through the whole show, and there's no curse words in the translation. So I don't really know what Shout was doing with this first one. I guess they were trying to separate it from Power Rangers pretty strongly, but come on, guys, there's gonna be a lot of kids buy these Sentai shows too. I don't know. I guess you got to be true to the translation, but still.
Yeah. Madam?
The villains in Zyuranger are a lot of fun, but they don't compare to Bandora. Bandora is just one of the greatest Sentai villains ever.
Oh, of course.
Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, my friends. That's the level of effects we're seeing here. But here it's excusable.
Yes. I was going to say it looks no different, so who's really to blame there? The planet Nemesis.
To me, this is just so visually hilarious. This little spaceship, rolling around. I just don't... let's see, it's just... I don't know. It's so funny to me. Maybe unintentional.
It's some great little physical comedy.
Yeah. It's funny.
There's all-terrain vehicle there.
Yeah, that is it. You know, it's funny. You never really see the news media like be a presence again in Zyuranger. It's just these first couple of episodes, you know, and then they never report on anything else. They're never really around. It's just every now and then.
Well, they're established, so we don't.
Yeah, there you go. They're all established. Like after this, like none of it was a big deal anymore. like oh, that's just the usual thing, you know. Everything's okay.
Well, these kids here die, and the rest of it's a dream.
Oh sure, yeah. Of course, it's all a dream.
Ooh, spoiler.
There's some great shots here under the cars and stuff. I'm not really sure. They didn't use a GoPro. We know that much, but
probably a very hefty television camcorder taped to a skateboard.
Yeah, we have some pervy humor back there.
Yeah. Where's Master Roshi?
Oh. You know what's funny? Something I forgot to mention is Pandora's on the moon, but we never actually saw her go to the moon. Like in the last episode, she just kind of came to Earth and terrorized everybody for a second. There's not really a whole lot of, aside from the space shuttle thing, not a whole lot of really solid continuity between the two events. And,
oh, that's right. Yeah.
You know, the what do you call it? The big Dora monster shown up in the last episode.
The Titan.
Dora Titan. Yeah, it was just kind of random. So
this is crazy.
Yeah, this is nuts. I bet they wish they could have used some of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's always great to see the bikes.
So much lost. Yeah, we never once saw the bikes in our show. They were a big part of the. This was in Power Rangers, huh?
Yeah, they used all this. Of course, I don't think this was episode 2 in Power Rangers. I think this was like a little bit later on. They used all this.
So it was called High Five in Power Rangers. It was pretty early on now, probably 4 or 5, episode 4 or 5.
Got it.
Don't swear, Power Rangers, please.
Yeah, Power Rangers, clean up your language. Some of these effects are so charming to me, where they kind of assemble the bones, then they cut back and it's a costume. Then the cartoony eyes are just hilarious. I like that he's just kind of wearing a magician's cape. Just go for it. Good reverse shot back there.
A cheap Dracula cape.
Yeah.
In the Halloween aisle.
Man, I love Geki and the other Zyurangers, like their costumes that they wear when they're not in the ranger suits.
Yeah. You know, we as an American production, as an American production, we've only sort of tiptoed into that occasionally with Power Rangers, and it's never been very good.
No, our costumes usually look pretty cheap, unfortunately. There's been a couple of times I liked it all right.
Yeah.
Like Jungle Fury, I like their little costumes okay.
Me too, yeah. And you get into these sort of...
Man, like Mystic Force.
Yeah, the awful capes, garbage bag capes of Mystic Force.
It's funny because, Boy, the Yellow Ranger was, of course, we had being female in Power Rangers. If you look at his chest, he's sort of the most bulky, kind of broadest man of the crew, and it's kind of funny that he was the one that we were trying to sell as a female in the costume, even though I never thought anything of it.
Yeah, that's the power of suggestion.
It is. I like this alternate dimension here.
This stuff scared me to death.
Yep. They incorporated, I guess...
pretty good chunk of this.
Yeah, quite a bit of this footage was actually used. And here we have the Die Shocker grunts. That's what these guys look like, Kamen Rider grunts. That's exactly what they look like. They never really did this again, having, specialized grunts for the monster.
Uh-huh.
I mean, after this, it was all just,
Yeah, just more Dora Golems.
Dora Golems and RS Putties.
Mm.
I always like that Toppat and Bookback always have a cartoony bombs and stuff.
Yeah.
I really like the scales on Bookback's costume, like the armor kind of scales.
Mm-hmm.
I think they always added a lot to it. It's lit! This party is lit. And it's so hot!
Any party with Squat and Babu is lit.
I can't imagine what ferocious party animals Squat and Babu are. Sorry, Toppat and Bookback.
Bookback? I remember reading the name thinking it was Buck for the longest time.
I think that I used to read some sites that said Buck.
I'm sure.
I think that there's some variations on spelling that causes some things. Mm. I like how they just call these Ranger guns. And they just filled him with lead right there. There's something you didn't really see in Power Rangers either. Everybody just draws their pistols and just blows a bad guy away. I think it's funny in America how we have, like, they can use cannons, they use bazookas, missile launchers, things that are much more destructive than, like, a handgun.
Yeah.
But yet, that's where we kind of draw the line. I guarantee these skeleton little costumes are from something that Toei had, and they just, like... Boy, basically announcing to him that he could go to the bad place was absolutely hilarious. That's one way to get rid of your villain right there. Just throw him into a pit of everlasting fire.
Yes. A fiery pit of unpleasantness at the center of the earth. Quote Master Shake.
There he is again. There's a Dora Titan, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's it's so random.
Which this is the actual transition they used in our US episode. It went from with very little explanation. It was like they fight the skeleton Bones, and then Zordon's like, "Oh, Rita sent a giant. You have to fight it."
Yeah, it's almost in a way. I'm not sure if they even knew what they were going to do at this point in Zyuranger, and they were like, "Well, maybe she'll have like giants that she calls Titans will show up, and they'll be different than like the flavor of the week monster."
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. I love that forced perspective stuff where like the sword's supposed to look giant. It actually kind of works.
Yeah, it's not a bad photographic trick.
Protect the children!
As a kid, I did wonder if this was supposed to be the giant version of Bones.
Yeah, if maybe this was his like super form or something.
I mean, because you can imagine him just putting on a suit of armor.
If I was Saban, I would have tried to have sold it like that. I really would have. I would have said, he's armored up Bones. And now he's back. We have some music cues here that they never really use again for the Guardian Beasts. Kind of this orchestral stuff. They don't really do it again. I guess it's more of just a big deal when the Tyrannosaurus shows up for the first time. Because keep in mind, this is the introduction of the Guardian Beast, pretty much. Alright. First giant jump in the show. These cockpits are still just, I think, my absolute favorite in terms of Sentai cockpits. Because they're so technological.
Yeah.
A lot of the cockpits are more kind of mystical looking on a lot of the stuff. See, there's so much more effort here to do like forced perspective shots to make them look large.
Yeah.
And then after this, they never really worry about it again.
I think that there's always, early on in the seasons, there is an attempt to trick you into it so that if you're a regular watcher, your mind has already been tricked once into believing that they're big, and so they don't try as hard, later on.
Yeah, exactly.
You see it in the Toho films too. When Godzilla shows up the first time, especially in the early films, there's a bigger attempt to make him look larger, and then they care less and less as the movies go on.
I think it's hilarious how in High Five they show this Japanese spaceship constantly with Japanese flags all over it, and it's just like this. Rita's using this ship as a way to tear a hole through space and time. I think was like the
it was going to open up a pocket dimension.
Yeah, so it's really funny. Of course, the other Guardian Beast, aside from Flashback, don't really appear in this. So the other Rangers, they got to have something to do.
Yeah,
while everything else is happening.
I always felt like they missed opportunities to do more of just the Tyrannosaurus in battle. I always thought it would be cool to see it fight monsters independently. And you would see it. I always liked later in the show when the Dragon Zord is in battle mode, you would sometimes have the Tyrannosaurus with it separately.
I always got a real thrill out of that as a kid, to see them separate fighting. Because I just loved, Tyrannosaurus so much because of Jurassic Park. And heck, even Barney at the time, I was a pretty big fan. Kindergarten me, so anything that was Tyrannosaurus Rex I thought was pretty great.
I guess even the live-action Flintstones, the first one was out around the same time too, right? So
just a year or two later.
Yeah.
I think 94 maybe is when there's 93.
That sounds about right. It was probably in 93 too, honestly.
It's Dinosaur Mania, man.
Yeah. And we're back. The most successful and memorable of them all. Also starring John Goodman.
Oh, man. Love that shot. There's a lot of great green screen insert shots like that with the giant Zords and Zyuranger. It's funny. Here we are at the end of episode 2. And the truth is, we still don't really know much about these characters
Yeah.
as people. And it's kind of a shame because it's kind of the weakness of Zyuranger, which never... They sort of remedy it later on a little, but not that much.
As you watch, you'll see each character sort of gets a highlight episode where they attempt to explain
and that's something like every Sentai does.
Yeah.
Mostly in this era. So, okay, like for me, Zyuranger does a much better job of setting up like the characters as the show goes on, and by the end of Zyuranger, which I've first time watched it all the way through, and I'm just kind of watching it right now. I feel like I understand the characters very, very, very well. The Green Ranger in Zyuranger particularly is a really, really interesting and cool character on his own right. I can't hardly tell you a thing about some of these individual Rangers aside from the history between later on in the show Barai and Geki. So that's one thing that Power Rangers had them beat to death on, was characterizing the main characters very quickly
from the word go.
I mean, like you said, in the last commentary, I think you were mentioning how that was their third rendition of the pilot, that they filmed. So it's no wonder that the character beats are down so well. But it's still, I don't think Zyuranger is too preoccupied with characterizing their main characters in a very serious way. Zyuranger is all about the fantasy and the action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, more about the visual.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But overall, I think the revival was good, but it was just kind of like what I would call a junk food Sentai episode.
It was.
There's lots of action.
And very much connective tissue, It's, hey, let's get all this stuff out of the way first. You get to see all these things for the first time, and then we'll delve into it in more detail later. You're dealing with so many. You have 5 costumed characters and a bunch of villains and monsters and weapons and vehicles and mecha to get people accustomed to when you started a new Sentai or Power Rangers. And so there's always a little bit of a rough start in each one.
And there's a checklist of things that they have to accomplish. Even though I'm heaping some praise on Zyuranger that I've been talking about, for this last little bit, Zyuranger goes a little too far the other way with their first episode or two, to where there's not enough of that Ranger action in the first episode of Zyuranger, in my opinion. But we'll get to that if we ever do Zyuranger commentary. So at least, even though this is kind of junk food-ish in the first few episodes, at least there's a lot of fun stuff going on and a lot of great visuals, great costumes, a good production value, really.
You'll never hear me complaining about junk food.
No. And the only thing that's a major criticism here is Dora Titan.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so out of the blue.
So ambiguous.
And in High Five, it was really out of the blue, too,
in
Power Rangers. So it doesn't work no matter what they do with it. If I was Saban, I would have tried to have backpedaled and corrected that element a lot. I still don't get why they didn't think that Dora Skeleton would be an impressive foe giant size.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, maybe they didn't know what they were going to do with it, like I said. But love Dora Skeleton.
Who knows?
So, good stuff. Anyway, though, we appreciate you guys listening to our commentary on Episode 2, The Revival. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing Episode 3, Fight in the Land of Despair, next. So, looking forward to that one. As always, this is Jared.
And this is Brandon.
Signing out. God bless.
Take care.